mine, Leslie Nope. This is my little pop figure. She lives on my desk. And Leslie Nope is from the show Parks and Recreation. And she and I are the same, except that she works way more than I do. But she is passionate about the people in her life. She goes bananas a lot because she works so hard on making people happy and doing things that are fun. She is accepting her quirks, and also she loves unconditionally. And she kind of looks like me, and she carries a clipboard. And I always carry a clipboard. Yes, Eliana?
Sorry, I just thought of another one now. I'm sorry.
That's okay. What?
Luna from Harry Potter.
Yes, Luna. Oh my gosh. You just described herself for sure. That's amazing. I'm going to put her here. You can see her. I know I'm not in the screen anymore. There she is. Okay, and so yeah, I have another one too, and that is Anne of Green Gables, because I am a huge reader. I've been reading since I was little, every single day if I could. Never met anyone, never read or saw anyone on the screen or the page that was more me. She would say we were kindred spirits, except I'm not an orphan and I don't have red hair, but we are the same. So I also love so many Bible characters. I've been reading the Bible forever because I have two scholar parents who have always read the Bible to me. And the characters in the Bible are real, which makes them even cooler. And we don't think a lot about how flawed they are. So I love a flawed hero. That's my favorite. The quirkier, the more mistakes they've made, the better. I trust them more if they are authentic. And I don't think we realize how quirky and authentic the big names in the Bible are. And next year, for the kids, this year we're doing, we did Jesus all year. Next year we're doing superheroes of the Bible. But we're going to talk about what makes them them. For example, I think it's there, Noah is, I forgot Noah sitting right there. This Noah couldn't handle his liquor. I put like how we think of them, cute, and then what they really were like. Because we're learning about a flawed hero today. So he fits right in. Okay, Jacob was a big deal, but he manipulated and lied to get his way. Abraham was an impatient adulterer who slept with his servant, made a huge mess of that. Moses was a murderer with a short temper, didn't even get into the promised land. David was a jealous adulterer and a murderer. And then there's Peter, and that's who we're talking about today. Oh, Peter. I love Peter. So he's one of my favorite flawed heroes. As we've been studying Mark all this time, you guys have probably heard his name at least once a month, if not more, because he was one of the 3 disciples that was closest to Jesus, and he was probably the most talkative of all of them. And today we're going to spend a little extra time on him, because in his flawed way, he makes a mistake that hurts him, breaks Jesus' heart, and is completely relatable to all of us. As we study this passage together, I want to consider 2 things, 2 takeaways today. So in Peter's story, actually, everything is in 3s. I did too. It's fine. So we're going to be grateful for these 2 things. Jesus chooses you. He chose you, but he chooses you. And Jesus doesn't ever give up on you. And the main theme, the punchline, so Jeff is way better with the punchy punchlines. So I went with the Bible, because the word is always good. Our punchline is from 2 Corinthians 12, 9, and 10. And it says, Paul is talking about God. And he says, but God said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So I made it snappier, took off some of it. So here's the punchline. When I am weak, then I am strong. And we're going to learn that about Peter, that he had some major weaknesses, but Jesus still chose him and still saw something in him, just like us. So let's pray and we'll dig in. Okay, Lord. My breathing is heavy and I'm getting excited, and I just need you to be here, speak the words that you want us to hear today. Amen. Okay. I like this podium because I can hide my Diet Coke under it. Jeff has coffee. I have Diet Coke. Okay, we're going to start reading our passage, but before we do, I want to give us a little context. This is a meanwhile story. So it means that it's taking place in the middle of all this terrible stuff that's happening to Jesus. He is in the last hours of his life, and he was just taken to the high priest's house, and that's where they questioned him. And last week, Jeff told us about the suffering and how they asked him straight up, "Who are you? Are you the Messiah?" And he says, "I am." And then they're like, "Okay, great, crucify him." So he is about to die. And right at this moment, it shifts from Peter to Jesus, or from Jesus to Peter in the story. When he was taken away, he went to the courthouse. He went to the courtyard of the high priest's house. All the disciples scattered. They all left Jesus, but Peter. Peter followed closely behind, but not close enough to be right next to Jesus. He kind of like skulked. And he ends up in the courtyard of the house where Jesus is, warming himself by the fire. So let's read the passage. This is where we are. Mark 14. It's in your Bibles. It's also in your Bible app. However you read the Bible, it's there. Mark 14, 66 to 72 says, "While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. You were also there. You also were with the Nazarene Jesus," she said. But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you're talking about," he said, and went out to the entryway. When the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, "This fellow is one of them." Again, he denied it. After a little while, those standing near to Peter said to Peter, "Surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." He began to call down curses and swore to them, "I don't know this man you're talking about." Immediately, the rooster crowed the second time. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. All right, so let's focus a little bit on our first takeaway. Jesus chooses you. In order to understand that, the story, and how it relates to us, I just want to take a minute to get to know Peter better. This story is rare in that we're following Jesus, and then suddenly it shifts to Peter, and it's in all 4 Gospels. So when it's talked about in every single book, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, something is important about it. Also, we just need to stop, breathe, and think about what this might mean and what Jesus might be going through. So, this series is called Jesus, Who is This Guy? Learn about him so we can live like him. And I have retitled it, Peter, Who is This Guy? Learn about him to be encouraged that you are chosen and forgiven and don't have to be afraid when you mess up like him. It's not as catchy, but it's mine, and that other one is Jeff's. Catchy, long. So, all right. So let's take a break from Jesus and learn a little bit about Peter. All right, first of all, I feel like he has so many oldest kid tendencies, but he was the younger brother. I relate to him as an older kid because of what he did and how he was, but no, he was the younger brother of Andrew, and Andrew and Peter worked with the sons of Zebedee, which I love, James and John, and they were all fishermen. He was married. We know this because in Mark 1, we hear about his mother-in-law. So that's all we hear about the wife. We just know that there's a mother-in-law that gets sick and Jesus heals her. She serves them. It's great. There's a wife in there somewhere, and there's one sentence in 2 Corinthians where Paul says, "Shouldn't wives also come like Peter's?" So there's a wife. You'd never know it by how he behaves. I don't know how she felt about him, but here's the deal. He was married. Okay, he's mentioned in all 4 Gospels, and Acts, 195 times total. All the disciples put together, besides him, only mentioned 130 times. He was important. Every time they talk about the disciples, Peter's first, which is awesome. But when you ask anyone, even AI, which I did, what is Peter famous for, it always says when he walked on water and when he denied Jesus. That's all that people know. So I want to tell you a little bit more, especially about his flaws and why I love that. His flaws are my favorite thing. He was a verbal processor. that's me, talked too much, way too much, too fast, said the wrong things all the time, and it was awesome. He was always the one that clarified. He was always like, what do you mean? Jesus, what are you talking about? And he was always the one that wanted to get the right answer. So Jesus said to the disciples, who do they say I am? And they're like, oh, they say you're this guy and this guy. And Peter was like, you're the Messiah, okay? I know the answer. I'm right. He wanted to be right. Peter is hot-blooded. He is passionate. He is curious and impulsive. He's brave, sure, but he's reckless. So he was the one where Jesus is walking on the water and they're all freaking out. He jumps out of the boat and hangs out with Jesus. It's pretty great. And he sinks and he learns a lesson, and it's great, but he's taught us a lot of things. Just like me and Leslie Knope, he is fiercely protective, so protective. But this gets him in trouble. First of all, he's one of the disciples that keeps the kids away from Jesus. Boo, Peter, come on. But he's just like, no. I can just imagine him like, there's kids, what do we do? Ah. And Jesus is like, no. But then he also took Jesus aside while Jesus was telling them about suffering and said, you're wrong. That's never going to happen. So it says in the Bible, when Jesus started talking more about his suffering, Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord, he said, this shall never happen to you. And Jesus turned back to Peter and says, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have the mind or concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Ugh, how embarrassing is that for Peter? And then also, the last thing he does for Jesus is getting taken away in the garden, and he literally attacks a soldier and cuts his ear off with a sword to protect him. Jesus has to stop what they're doing, heal the guy named Malchus, it's a real guy, and then get taken away. Like, Peter, why? I love it. So knowing all this, that he's crazy, fiercely protective, wants to spend time talking to Jesus, it's kind of nuts that he's known for his mistake. His denial of the Lord that he was so close to, so protective over, and so passionate about. The denial is so surprising when we find out that the first thing that Jesus did when he saw him ever, Peter says, hi, Jesus. And Jesus says, oh, you're Simon, son of John. You'll be called Cephas. He just changes his name. First thing he says. So if Sam had walked in the first day and was like, hi, I'm Sam. And I said, no, I'm going to call you Joe. Because I know why, but you don't know why. That's what Jesus did. And he saw something in him that was big. And later, in Matthew 16, Jesus says to him, and I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock, Cephas, Peter, rock, that's the word, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Now this is important because Jesus saw something in Peter that was bigger than he could imagine. And he does the same for us. And Peter fails him over and over. He was too much this or too much that, and he was actually afraid. And so the denial is fear. The denial is about the shame of the people around him. He did not want to be associated with Jesus, but Jesus saw something bigger in him. His desperation to not be killed made him deny even knowing the guy he had just spent 3 years protecting and loving and learning about. But Jesus knew he was going to do this. He knew before Peter was even born, exactly who he was, what he would do, how he would drive him nuts, and how he would disappoint him. But he chose him anyway. In that first meeting, he could have turned away from him. He could have been like, oh, you're Peter? Yeah, no thanks. I don't need any of this. You are exhausting. And he could have gone with 10, 12, 40 yes men who would have just done anything Jesus said. They wouldn't have questioned him. He could have just been like the cool leader. No, he picked 12 guys who did not get it. And Peter was one of his favorites, even though he was so exhausting. In the first moment you opened your eyes, Jesus knew everything. He knew way before that. What if he was like, oh no, this kid, Ryan, He is going to be such a pain. He's going to whine all the time from ages 4 to 7. He'll probably crash his car at some point. He's probably going to sneak in after curfew. He's probably going to say things that he shouldn't say and lie and hang out with the wrong people. I don't need him. I don't want that. I don't need that. He did not say that. He said, oh my gosh, Ryan is here. We are going to do some great stuff. And he feels the same exact way about you. Everybody. You're here in this room or online someday watching or listening, and Jesus wanted you. And that's the second thing to take away from Paul, as Peter messed up. We mess up, right? But Jesus doesn't give up on us, so that's the second one. He forgives us, forgives, not forgave. Forgave, sure, but will forgive, will choose us. Never give up. My favorite verse is, he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it, no matter what. His instincts, Peter, is so loyal, and his instincts were to protect at all costs. So, have you ever met someone like this in your life? I was really hoping my mom would come. She always comes to these. And so I can't wait to tease her that she didn't come. But if you know my mom, she's like, how wonderful. And she goes, what is bringing you joy today? That's how she talks. I've only heard her swear once, and it was at us kids because we were horrible, and it was so weird, and I'll never forget it, and I'm not going to say it, but it wasn't so bad, but it was still weird. She never yells. She grits her teeth when she's mad. Julie, sit on the grouch chair, she would say. She put us on the grouch chair. That's as angry as she got. I could tell she was angry, but she didn't yell. So here's a story about my mom. So it's a long story, but I lived in Vienna, Austria for 3 years when I was a teenager. So I was 13 years old, and here we are. There I am, and there's my friend Alyssa, and I was with my friend Alyssa. And Alyssa and I are on this very, very busy streetcar. I'm going to call it a train a lot. You know what I'm talking about. Goes on the street. And it was so crowded, and for some reason my mom was there with a grocery pulling cart thing, and she was way far away. It's all crowded. We're sitting there in the train. Then all of a sudden, me and Alyssa, who were 13 and blonde, feel this rubbing on the back of our heads. And these skeezy, slimy dudes were behind us going, oh, schöne Mädchen, oh, komm mit mir, which means, oh, pretty girls, come with us. And then they go, wie heißt du? What's your name? My friend goes, Alyssa. And I'm like, Alyssa, dude. So then they start talking to her. Alyssa, schöne Mädchen. Oh, so schön. And I was like, gonna barf. And I'm like, what do? We can't move. We're stuck. And suddenly I see this blonde cloud from the side of the train, inside the train, just all of a sudden. And she's short. She's my height. Oh, then there's pushing and pushing and pushing. And here she comes with her stupid big cart. And she gets up to the dudes, and she looks right at them, and she grits her teeth, and she goes, get your hands off my daughters. And she grabbed their hand. And I was like, ah! So then she grabs us, yanks us off the train at the next stop, not our stop. I don't remember what we were doing. And we're off the train, and she goes, okay. And we're from New Jersey. Okay, so we're going to get some ice cream. We're going to go talk about this. And I was like, what just happened? And I have never seen her do that before or since, but that is my protective mom. She would kill for me. And my friend goes, Alyssa goes, I'm not even your daughter. And she goes, you are my daughter today. And she was she got all, it was cute. I'll never forget it. And that's exactly how Peter was, right? And I didn't really understand it till I had kids. So it's like if we get off the train and my mom goes, bye, I don't know you, and leaves. I'm going to protect you at all costs, but I don't care who you are. See ya. That is so bizarre. It would never happen in a million years. That's what Peter did. So he gave in to the wrong instincts. Instead of being his brave, reckless self, he let the stares and whispers and pointing get to him. He didn't protect Jesus. He didn't fight for him. He didn't even acknowledge knowing him. He called down curses, which is not swear words like my mom said that one time. It's definitely If I'm lying, I should die. He was calling down curses. Every time I hear this story, I'm reminded that when I was a kid in the 80s, we weren't allowed to say, I swear to God. You are not allowed to say that, but that's what this is. The darkest thing you can think of to say, I do not know him. It was emotional and human fear. How many times do we do this? Maybe there's no roosters in our lives. Maybe we haven't seen Jesus face to face. But in this world, isn't it hard to not deny knowing him? I don't say I don't know him, but boy, is it hard to be like, yes, I love Jesus. I love him so much. I would fight for him. Ooh, that's hard in this time, right? It's hard every time. So here's the thing. I want to get to the good stuff that happens to Peter. Because one of the things that also happens to Peter is this. Jesus, and it doesn't say this in Mark, it says it in Luke. Peter says, I do not know him. And Jesus turns and looks straight at Peter. Yikes. Oh my gosh, that would be horrifying. Have you ever been caught like in a straight up lie? Or caught climbing in the window when you're supposed to be in your bed? That never happened to me. My brother. And, or have you ever gossiped about someone who's standing right there? I do know a child who texted a group chat about someone she was upset with, and it turns out that she texted the wrong group chat and he was in it. That is horrifying. Poor thing. Still went to school, really proud of her. Owned it. I mean, I don't know this girl, this friend of mine. I owe her $5 now. Okay, so he does this, looks right at Jesus, and Jesus still doesn't give up. So we're not going to get to the end of the story in Mark. He's not back again. There's one thing in Mark we will read, and it's this. I think it's the ladies. The ladies were first to see Jesus when he rose again, right? Whoop, whoop, ladies. So the angels tell them this sentence, but go and tell his disciples, and Peter, he is going ahead of you to Galilee, and he will meet you there just as he told you. It's like they were like, oh yeah, Jesus says, tell those guys that are great and that didn't screw up, and then tell Peter, who is awful, but I still love him, to meet me in Galilee. That's huge, I think. And it gets better. So Jesus appears to them on the shore after he's resurrected, and he's cooking breakfast, which I think is so cute. But Peter is the first one to recognize who he is. And what does he do? When he sees him, what does he do? It sounds very familiar. He already did this. He's in a boat. He sees Jesus on the shore. He jumps off the boat and swims to Jesus. What? That's so cool. It's good storytelling, and it's true. That was an even more important moment, but this is what Jesus does. They're eating the fish that Jesus cooked. Amazing. And he takes him aside. Well, I think he was there. A lot of them say that he was right there. He didn't scold him. He didn't yell at him. He didn't humiliate him. How could you possibly do that to me? Sit in the grouch chair, Peter. He says, Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, yes, Lord. Feed my lambs. Then he says, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord. You know that I love you. Take care of my sheep. The third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt, it says in John 21. Peter's hurt. Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him 3 times, do you love me? And he says, Lord, you know all things. You know I love you. And Jesus says, feed my sheep. And then he says, follow me. This is a big deal. How many times did Peter deny Jesus? How many times did Jesus ask him if he loved him? He doesn't yell at him, and he gives him specific jobs. Feed my sheep, which means you are the shepherd. I love these people. They're my sheep. Now it's your turn. Are you ready to feed them? He just messed up and denied knowing him. And Jesus is like, that's okay. I trust you. Here's my dudes. Take care of them. And he did. Oh my gosh, after Peter talked to Jesus, when Jesus was on in heaven, Peter becomes exactly what God said he would be. He was the rock on which Jesus built his church. The first time he preaches, 3,000 people are there. That would be terrifying. It's amazing. He actually started the real church like Jesus said he would. He bound things on earth and in heaven, which means he healed people. He raised them from the dead, just like Jesus. He was amazing. He wrote 2 books. Guess what they're named? 1st and 2nd Peter. And, and he wrote probably some of the most wise and amazing verses that I have memorized in my life. Cast all your cares on him. And there's a lot of wisdom in those books that you can tell he messed up and he was still seen. It is so obvious when you know that, when you read those books. And he did the same for you. He picked you. He chooses you every day. He has something for you. Just you. Even when you royally, gigantically fail. Even if you talk too much and your sermon goes 10 minutes longer and you're going to hear about it later, it doesn't matter. Jesus still loves you. He chooses you. And right now we're going to take communion. But these are the takeaways. He chooses you. He doesn't give up on you. And when you are weak, which we all are, just like Peter, then we are strong. Okay. So we're going to take communion, and then you get to go. But before we take communion, I just want you to sit for a second and think about this idea that Jesus has chosen you. And maybe you still have a leaf left, and you just need to write on it, I'm thankful for being chosen. I'm thankful for being loved. Maybe that's all you need to do. And hang that up somewhere. But I want you to take a minute to do that before you come up and get your crackers and juice, and we'll take those together. Okay?